Hello, everyone. Good afternoon, good evening, good morning, wherever you are. Welcome to another Bonjour Paris Live. I am Poppy, and I'm delighted to be your host again for this wonderful event. Today, we are rejoined again by the award-winning wine educator and Loire Valley native Paul Declerck, author of the best-selling book, How to Appreciate Wine. This is now part 3 of our four-part series, and today we'll truly explore how to understand wine through your senses. Paul will guide us through appearance, smell, and taste, showing us how to assess colour and clarity, identify key aroma families, and recognise balance on the palate. Through practical examples and relatable stories, he'll help turn casual wine drinking into confident wine analysis. Whether you're new to wine or looking to sharpen your tasting skills, this session is for you. And as part of the wider 4-part series, today's session builds perfectly on what we covered in parts 1 and 2, giving you a complete and self-contained journey through the wines and regions everybody should know. So grab a glass if you have one, get comfortable, and let's dive in. And as the necessary disclaimer, which I have to do each time, please consume alcohol responsibly and in accordance with local laws and legal drinking ages. Now, it's my absolute pleasure to reintroduce our speaker, Paul. We are so excited to continue our wine education. So I'd love to welcome you, and I'm going to pass it over to you.
Well, thank you very much, Poppy. Thanks a lot for having me again. And I'm looking forward to this one. We are going to dive into the practicality of wine today and really actually not talk about so much theory, but much more practice. So let's go. What I will do is I'm going to start by sharing my screen. Today, we are going to discuss, again, the practicality, but I'm going to start with the usual slide so you understand a bit more about who I am and where I come from and what I do, because it's a big part of why I'm here. I'm from a family of winemakers in the Loire Valley. I grew up with my grandfather and my uncle making wine. So yes, I've seen since I'm a very small child, and I've tasted wine as well from very, very young age. I currently work for a company called Cult Wines, which is the largest wine investment company in the world. We are based in London because London is the wine hub, the international wine hub of the world. Now, trust me, it hurts me every time I say this because it's London and it's not Paris. It's historically related to when the England was in possession of the Aquitaine, which is where Bordeaux was, and for about 400 years, the wine produced in Bordeaux was shipped directly to London instead of being sold to France, which has connected a very strong bond between the Bordeaux producers and the UK. And it has made today the ultimate consequence is that, Cult Wine is here in London and not in Paris, basically. So I wrote a book called How to Appreciate Wine, which is what you just mentioned. And I explain in it the 5 points method. We are going to see 3 of the 5 points today, but we are going to dive into this in a second. This is where I'm from. I don't know if you can see my mouse, but this is where near Nantes, basically, it's an hour away from where I'm from, in the Loire Valley. So this is the French wine map, and you can find this poster on the website as well, by the way. So what to expect today? I'm going to give you some little tips. I'm going to make you go through 5 sensory games. I have a glass of wine with me, and I highly encourage you today. I don't usually, but today I highly encourage you to have one as well, because we are going to go through little games that are fun to do, really. And we're going to have a bit of a step-by-step guide as well. So what you need, that's some of your attention, obviously, a tiny bit of interest, but I know you already because you're here, and a glass of wine at hand. I like to remind everyone that in 100 years from now, everything we possess, our cars, our clothes, our home, will no longer exist, right? they will either not exist anymore or belong to someone else. And there's only one thing that truly belongs to you, and it's your memory. The memories you create every day. Some are good, some are bad, but they are they are truly yours. And that's the only thing that is truly yours. So every day, at every second, I highly encourage you to try to make that little moment a tiny bit better. Now, personally, I love the best moments for me is a glass of wine shared with family or some friends. Like that is the best. That's why I like to live, really. Uh, so this is a brief slide about fine wine investment in general. So again, what I do is fine wine investment, and basically this is the warehouse. This is what it looks like. It's just outside of London. There are roughly 2 million bottles in there, which is represents over 200 million pounds worth of wine. Um, what's very interesting about wine at the moment is that the prices have been falling pretty drastically for the last 3 years. But now we are seeing a little uptick, which has been happening since October, November last year. Anyway, it's a great time to invest. So if you're interested in investing in wine, you can just scan this or contact me directly. This is my book. You will find it on the website as well. Again, if you search for how to appreciate wine, or you have the link directly, as Poppy explained. Not difficult to find. I have created an online video course which goes through the whole book in videos. It's it's me talking to you for quite some time about everything you need to know. And I've given you a 50% discount by using this code here called Bonjour 50. But if you use this, you're going to get 50% off. This, you can get the website, by the way. So you can get the online video course directly from the website. So today we are going to dive into the, the color of the wine, the nose, what the smell technically, but what we call the nose in wine, and the palate, so the flavors, the aromas, etc. But we're going to start by the color of the wine, right? I have with me a white wine. But if you have red wine, it works exactly the same. Now, what's fascinating about wine is that just looking at the glass can actually tell you a lot about what you're drinking. Now, I like to stipulate that it cannot tell you much about the quality of the wine, but it can tell you, for example, about the style, right? The wine style. If you have my book already, or if, if you're planning on buying it, you will see that inside the book I explained there are 9 different types of wine. There is the light reds, for example. There is the full-bodied reds. There is the sparkling wine. There is the dry whites. There are the sweet whites, right? The Sauternes, etc. In total, there are 9 of them. And just by looking at the glass can tell me quite a lot, well, in terms of the style. Now, a lot of people will tell you, "Ah, I think this is a very good wine because, I don't know, the legs looks like this, or, this color is stunning or whatever." Honestly, this is not very true. You can not tell much about the quality of the wine from just looking at it. What you can see is its viscosity. You can, yet again, understand probably some of its age, right? A white wine and a red wine will turn towards brown over age. You can, if you're very good, identify the grape, but it's not easy. The region, the winemaking techniques, just again, just by looking at it, it's not easy, but it's actually sometimes you can, right? If it's been aged in oak or not, etc. Um, it's all about knowing what to look for. So this is what you usually go through when you go through the check of your wine, right? So you have 3 main things. The first one is the appearance, which is what I just mentioned. You get the color, the viscosity, the bubbles. Then you're going to look at the smell. You're going to smell the glass, right? You're going to smell the wine, and you're going to just start to assess the intensity, but also the clarity of the aromas. And you might remember this. There are 3 types of aromas: primary, secondary, and tertiary. So the nose is our first step towards discovering these aromas, basically. And then the one that is going to be the most important, the most uh, complete is going to be the taste, because the taste will tell us about the intensity, about the balance, about the finish of the wine as well, which are very important criteria. It will tell you the flavor profile, again, the primary, secondary, and tertiary aromas, if there are any, and the tannins. You might have heard this word before. We've covered it a tiny bit in the first few lessons. I remember having some questions about them as well. But yes, the tannins basically have a quality, an intensity, and a texture. So that's what we're going to go through. But we're going to start with the color of wine. So again, this chart here on the left is available on the website, and it's in as a poster, and it's inside the book too. When you buy the book, you get. But anyway, so all wine stands turn towards brown with age. Now, this is very important because well, the 20 years old wine, for example, red wine, will be really brown, but it will be what we call tony, right? It will be one of these, pale, medium, or deep tony, right? And then it can turn the color. Basically, a young red wine will be looking very fresh, like a fresh fruit. But then the older it gets, the more it looks like an old fruit, right? If you look at an old strawberry, it's a bit darker. It's a bit, yeah. That's what happens to the wine as well. And then this is also what happens to white wine, as explained. Most white wines are not made for keeping for ages and ages or years. Most of them are made to drink very young, in the first year or two after they've been produced. But some of them, including dessert wine, for example, the Sauternes, can age for decades, even centuries, some of them. My favorite wine shop in the world, and my favorite shop in general, I shouldn't even mention wine, my favorite shop in general is uh, this this shop in Mayfair. The name is going to come back to me. Anyway, they have a lovely Ikem wall at the end, and it's quite impressive. Really, Hedonism. That's the name of the wine shop. If you walk by Mayfair, just enter Hedonism for the experience. Like, it's worth it. I'm not kidding. It's really is a special shop. Anyway, so so just by looking at the wine, you can identify quite a lot. Lighter reds like Pinot Noir, you might have heard Pinot Noir from Burgundy or Cabernet Franc, they will be transparent, right? You can see through actually. But Cahors, for example, is the darkest color, is the darkest grape. If you ever have some wine from Cahors, you will be shocked how much dark it is. You literally cannot see through it. If you try to read something through your glass, you cannot see. It's very impressive. It's literally black almost. Again, oak aging makes white wine golden, which is interesting, right? A deep gold. This is an oak aged wine. I don't know if you can tell much, but this is a Burgundy white wine, and it is definitely more golden than, like for example, a Sauvignon Blanc would be. Sauvignon Blanc would be what we call almost green or pale straw, right? That's what usually it's described at. Now, full-bodied wines, and that goes for red and whites. Full-bodied is the texture. You remember, like how full they feel in your mouth. They can usually tolerate much more than any other wine. And so it actually gives them the body. It gives them a lot of flavors that are interesting in wine. But you can tell a lot by just looking at the wine. So what I have created, this is the 5 points method, of course. Now you will notice here that, well, actually, we don't score the color of the wine. And that's for what I explained earlier. In my opinion, color is interesting in the sense that it helps you to identify what type of wine it is, but actually, it shouldn't be giving you any clue as to the quality of the wine. And so these are the 5 points: the intensity of the nose, complexity of the aroma, intensity of the palate, balance of the wine, etc. Finish of the wine, but not the color. Now, this is controversial. This is my method. which is adapted from the major wine critics like Robert Parker. I discussed this earlier in this course, but basically, some of these critics, these international wine critics, would give, for example, 5 points just for the color. I decided not to because, in my opinion, the color cannot give you any clue as the quality of the wine, anyway. And when the good thing about this 5 points method is that it gives you your own score out of 100 points. So you have a base of 50 and then you add every score that you write down, right? And it gives you your own score. In this case, it was the Chateau Margaux 2005. And this, I rated it 98 out of 100. 98 is classified as phenomenal, right? Anything below 70, it's not really drinkable. Anyway, and so let's keep going. What we're going to see here is we're going to jump into the nose. I have explained it to you before, but I'm gonna do it again because again we've looked at the color of the wine. Now it's the next step. It's the nose. So the smell of the wine, basically. Now the intensity of the nose is going to give us something very important, which is how powerful this wine is. You have to understand that a very good wine will smell very strong, right? It will be like very, very strong. And a terrible wine, something that comes from the supermarket around the corner that you bought for £5 or £6, this will not smell like anything, literally. So we're going to try to assess this intensity. And the way we do it is by using our face as a scale, right? So we're going to take the glass and put it below our chin. Now, if you can smell the wine already from there, this is already 9 or 10 points out of 10 because the wine smells strong. If you can't, you raise it to the bottom lip. Right. If you still can't smell, you raise to the upper lip. And if you really can't smell anything, you have to put your nose in it, then this is literally 1 or 2 points. It's terrible. This is supermarket level. But the intensity of the nose is very important. And it is a very easy point to remember. So remember, you take your face as a scale. And if you do it right, you can use it with every wine, every shape of glass or everything. Now, it's going to be more consistent, obviously, if you always use the same glass. And it's okay if you swirl, but if you swirl, you have to do it all the time. You can't just like swirl once and then the other one, you don't swirl or anything. So it's all about being consistent. So then your palate is, your nose in this case is actually accurate. So yeah, let's keep going. We're going to have our first little game. Now, you all have, maybe not all, but you all have a glass of wine in your head. Have you ever tried to swallow wine? Maybe not swallow, actually, to just taste wine by closing your nose. It is impressive how much you can't taste anything. So you literally do this. You close your nose, you get a bit of wine in your mouth, and you tell me if you can taste anything. No, you can't. And you can leave it in your mouth as long as possible. Nothing will come. The main reason, the only reason, is because basically the oxygen that comes into your mouth comes from the connection that has your nose. But if you block here, there's no oxygen coming into your mouth, meaning the molecules of alcohol are not evaporating, they're not getting in contact with oxygen, and they're not giving your receptors any feedback on what you have in your mouth. And the parents here will know, right? Like when you want to make the kid swallow something, you just close his nose and shove it in there. That's pretty much the reason why. It's the same. So a very interesting little game, the nose game. We're going to try another little game now, which is the 10 seconds rule. I'm going a tiny bit ahead here, but it's also interesting because why not do them one after another? You're going to take some wine in your mouth, and basically this exercise is all about taking your time and trying to understand what's really happening in your mouth. So Before swallowing the wine, you're going to keep it for at least 10 seconds. You're going to see a real difference as to what's going on. You will start noticing some textures. You will start noticing some flavors that you were not necessarily used to, or that you didn't pay attention to because you were just swallowing the wine without paying so much attention to it. Taking the time to feel what's in your mouth will give you a lot, and it will really bring you so much more than you're used to if you're not used to do this. So yes, the 10 seconds are very important. Um, the secondary, the second, well, yes, the second point of the 5 points method is the complexity of the aromas. Now, this is not easy to understand because basically there are three different types of aromas, which I mentioned earlier, but they are the primary aromas. They come directly from the grapes, and every wine in the whole world have primary aromas. They usually taste like fruit or fresh fruits, at least, but not always. They can be herby, they can be flowery. So yeah, it's all about what directly comes from the grapes, really. Now, again, 99% of the wines available on the shelves will only have primary aromas because they will be very young and they will be made to drink young. The secondary aromas are a bit more complicated. Imagine it that as all the decisions that the winemaker has to make in order to make the wine he wants. So sometimes they come from oak, for example, oak aging, right? Putting the wine in oak or not. If it does, it's going to bring some of these secondary aromas. If he lets, there's something called the malolactic fermentation. If he lets the malolactic fermentation happening, then it will give a different texture. It will give a different flavors profile to the wine. Here we have two examples, but I'm showing you the wheel of flavors just after, so you understand. The wheel of flavors has all the flavors, but here you have two examples of what wood aging, for example, could bring. You might have heard of bread or brioche in a champagne, for example. Well, the champagne smells like bread or brioche because of the yeast. The yeast exposure, which means they've been leaving the wine not necessarily on oak, but actually on its yeast. And the dead yeast give a flavor to the wine, which is again bread or sometimes brioche. But is more this time. Any Chardonnay that is oak aged will usually taste buttery, almost creamy. It is again a secondary aroma. Think of the secondary aromas as the chef, special details when he cooks. It's the same with wine, basically. So all these secondary aromas are made from the decisions that the winemaker has taken. And then you have the tertiary aromas. Now the tertiary aromas are very special because they only time can bring you tertiary aromas. And they can only arrive after at least 7 to 8 years. So if you lay that bottle of wine for 7 to 8 years in minimum, you will start noticing some of these flavors arriving. The most common ones are forest floor, leather, cigar, spices a tiny bit as well. But imagine the forest floor is a very interesting one. Imagine walking in the forest just after the rain. It has this very strong smell of humus, right? In the soil, it smells very nice, right? Well, this is what the tertiary aromas will bring. Now, a Bordeaux wine, for example, will start developing them from 7, 8 years. You start smelling them, but it's very young. The older they get, the more they will develop these tertiary aromas, but the less they will have the primary aromas. So what's fantastic about wine is that over the years, the primary aromas die, right? These fresh fruits, let's say the fresh cherry, for example, that you're used to when the wine is young start dying. You almost can't taste them anymore. But what you get more and more over the years, and when a wine is like 30 or 40 years old, you have a lot of these tertiary aromas and almost no primary anymore. If the wine is 100 years old, you have absolutely no primary aromas anymore and only tertiary. The wine will taste like a mushroom. It will have no consistency. It will be completely gone, right? It is. So that's why the balance is very important. And to drink the wine at the right moment is, well, what makes wine wine, right? It's what you want to create, what you want to achieve. And I'm a big fan of old wines. For me, the best wines in the world will age for up to 40 years, really. After that, the tertiary aromas are too strong. They turn to are past what we call their peak, basically. They're past their prime. So what we are trying to assess in the complexity of the aromas is all this. How many flavors from different types can we assess? So here, in this example, there are strawberries, raspberries, red cherry, and cassis. But secondary, there is vanilla and cloves, most likely from wood aging or oak aging. And then tertiary, we start getting some cigar leaves, forest floor, leather, etc. So this is a very good example. And basically, the more you can identify of these, the higher the rating will be, because the more complex. Complex is actually a compliment for a wine, right? The more complex it is, and what we call the bouquet in French is, well, the more complex the bouquet, the better the wine. So yeah, this is not easy for beginners, but actually when you start getting your head around it, it's starting to make sense. Because then you're like, oh, actually, I've realized I like to taste raspberry in a glass of wine, in my wine. Right? And you're no longer asking yourself, why do I like this wine? No idea. Actually, I know. I like it because I like these flavors here. I like these flavors and I like this texture. The texture feels good in my mouth. So this is the wheel of flavor. I know it looks scary, but it's not that much. It's basically all the flavors that you can find in a glass of wine. Now, there's 101 flavors written in there. And let's say it covers 99%, but there's probably a few more that are not written down. But anyway, the way it works is you always start from the center. So here you can see primary aromas, secondary aromas, and tertiary aromas. We've covered these just now. There are also the faults, but the faults are less important. They only are important when when you smell something wrong in the wine. And trust me, when the wine smells like wet dog or even cat pee right here, you know it's not drinkable. You would not want to drink this. So anyway, primary aromas represent a good 2/3 of all the flavors you can find usually in a glass of wine. They can be floral, they can be citrus, they can be tropical fruit, they can be dried fruit, or they can be herbs, mineral. Look at that. There's even petroleum in here, right? Volcanic rocks, flakes, right? It's very complex. And the best way to assess it is literally to have this wheel in front of you. Taste the wine and go one by one. All right. Can I taste iris? No. Can I taste peony? No. And it's very quick. After you've done 10 or 20 of them, it goes faster, right? For me, it's very simple. I smell this. It smells like lemon, a bit of mandarin, and you hear the professionals and they're like, they sound so good. It's because they've done it 1,000 times. That's why. Anyway, then you go to the secondary aromas, and you have all the, well, malolactic fermentation that I explained earlier. The yeast, which is mostly about champagne, for example, right? It's going to take like brioche or toasted bread. And then the oak aging. So the oak aging, depending on if it's white or red, will give some different flavors. But, cloves, for example, is very common in red wines, basically. It tastes a bit like cloves. Oak, obviously, that makes sense. And then you have the tertiary aromas. Look, they are separated between white and red. This one is very clear. Red wines will taste like tobacco leaves or cigar box. That is really, and leather and truffle as well, definitely. And then white wines, when they age, they taste like marmalade almost. Like you have the dried fruits, you have honey. Usually it smells and tastes like honey quite a lot. Hazelnut or any form of nut really gets, like the very old wines can get these flavors. Caramel is a very good one as well. Anyway, so again, this is downloadable from the website. Feel free to use it every time you have a glass of wine in your hand. It's going to help you with your, with appreciating the wine in front of you. This is a very similar version. It's just a bit more graphical. I've had this done because I find it beautiful, right? You have the biscuit, you have the black pepper here, you have cinnamon, of course, geranium, mandarin. You even have, oh, it's not here. I'm missing the wet dog because it's not showing there's a wet dog usually. If you buy the poster on, anyway, there's a picture of a wet dog, which I find funny. But yeah, I think if you scan this, it's going to take you straight to the place. Okay, we're going to do another little game now, which is called decanting, swirl, or slur. The reason why you decant wine, you probably know already, is because it gives air to the wine, right? It opens it. Now, what exactly are we doing this? Well, we're exposing the molecule of alcohol to the molecule of oxygen. The molecule of alcohol is where all the flavors attach themselves to. If you know perfumes, for example, if you look at any bottle of perfume, the bottle will always say alcohol. Usually there's at least 50% of it. Why? It's not because we're drinking it. No, it's because the molecule that smells good in this perfume attach themselves to this molecule of alcohol. That's why. That's how it works. Now, if you put this molecule of alcohol in contact with a molecule of oxygen, they explode, and all these flavors come and reveal themselves to your nose. This is what's going on. So this is why we decant the wine, to have a bit of air getting into it and making the wine a bit rounder, a bit softer, a bit good, basically. Decanting, in my opinion, red wines, don't hesitate to decant them for at least 5, 6, even 8 hours, really. Not 24, but literally 6, 7 is good. White wine, they will never benefit from decanting, so don't even bother. But and the very old wines, yes, still you can decant them. Just don't decant in red wine, Burgundy, or Pinot Noir, because they are very fragile and they will not tolerate it very well. So you open the bottle and you drink it immediately. So what we're going to do here, when we decant the wine, it opens up, it gives it some oxygen. When I swirl the wine like this, I'm doing exactly the same, letting oxygen in contact with this wine, which reveals the wine, which is why when we swirl, the wine smells stronger and bigger. Now, I'm going to teach you something that is going to sound horrible, but you must have seen it before. It's slurping, basically. It's you put some wine in your mouth and you do what you've seen by French people or Italians, it's that little ugly sound here. Why do we all do this? It's because it literally multiplies by at least twofold the intensity of the wine in your mouth. So I'm going to teach you how to do it, and you're going to practice at home. You will take a decent amount of wine in your mouth, right? Not mouthful, but a decent amount. You're going to lean forward. That step is important. And then you're going to get a tiny bit of coming through your mouth, through your lips, right? So you're going to, then you shake, you get it, you do it another time, you shake again, you do it 4 or 5 times, and then you swallow. You will see what I'm talking about. Now, I'm doing it for you. Mm-hmm. Now we're talking. This is literally like decanting in your mouth. This wine tastes delicious, by the way. But it's try to and don't worry, even if you spill. But you're gonna get used to it. The first time, it's never perfect. It's like everything, isn't it? And so now we're going to discuss the intensity of the palate. This is something that is not necessarily easy to assess either, but it's important. we realized that the intensity of the nose was very important, how powerful this wine smells. Now, what we're going to try to assess here is how powerful it tastes. It's harder because we don't have our face to use as a scale. We're going to have to compare it to what we know. And well, it's not easy. And the more experience, and especially the more you can compare it to properly, the more you do it, the better it will get and the more accurate it will become. But basically, a very, very good wine will feel like an explosion of flavors in your mouth, right? It's going to be like a fireworks. It feels like, wow, incredible. A terrible wine will feel like water, nothing. Literally, I can barely taste anything. So you're going to try to assess this and, well, yeah, measure it between 1 and 10. Again, the stronger it tastes, the better. Imagine, I like to compare it to a note on the piano. If you gently press the note on the piano, it's going to do a little sound. But if you press very hard, if you hammer this note, the sound is going to be much louder, right? It's exactly this. So is this wine a little and then it dies immediately? Or is it like a massive note, very high, and then it keeps or very high for a very long time? That's what we're trying to assess. And that is what is important with the intensity of the palate. All right. Now we have another little game. It's called the little rope game. The little rope game is very simple, but it's interesting. We're going to try. Okay. At Christmas, you always have someone who is kind of difficult to convince and, talking a bit and, strong ego, etc. What I'd like to do to challenge them is to tell them, okay, do you think the length of this glass is long than the circumference of the top of the glass? The vast majority of the people will actually get wrong there because they will think the length of the glass is much longer. But what we do to do this, to measure it, we take a little rope, which is what I have here, right? And then you do it like this. Now, this glass is a bit difficult because basically it's very long and narrow, but it's not the best example. But so you do this, then you have the lens and you measure it. But look at that. This glass is almost, it's not the best example, I said. This glass, if I touch the bottom, is literally a tiny bit too short. But you can try any wine glass or any even water glass in your house, and I can guarantee most of them, if not all of them, will be a confusing result for who is not expecting it. It should be the circumference of the top will be much longer than the glass itself. Anyway, always fun to look at. And then we are going to do our fifth little game. We all know where this is. We've all known these pictures. It's Santinori in Greece, right? Fantastic place. Now, the reason why I like to bring up this picture is to ask you a simple question. Do you believe the wine that you're having right now would taste the same or different in Santorini? Well, the natural answer would be it should taste the same. It's the same wine. But somehow we've all kind of experienced, hold on, one day I bought this wine from this vineyard, and back then it tasted so good. It was the best thing. And then I brought it home. I tried it home and it was like average. So we've all tasted that, right? We're going to try to assess why. Because basically our brain is playing plenty of little tricks like this. The environment we're in is affecting us a lot. If we're in Santorini, or if we are at home in a rainy London, grey November, it's not going to taste the same at all. What we're going to do, I have here a tiny bit of, it's basically something like silk, right? It's very soft. It's a very soft product. Now, I also have a piece of sandpaper. You can see, if you have these two at home, try this. You close your eyes and you drink the wine first by rubbing the silk, right? You close your eyes, you drink the wine, and you rub the silk. You swallow, You give it a second, and then you do the same, and you rub your fingers against the harsh sandpaper. And you tell me if the wine tastes the same. It does not. Very often, I do it at all my wine tastings. Very often, people find that drinking the wine, when you touch the sandpaper, it actually makes it a bit more harsh and makes it a bit less good, basically, which is fascinating. It's like drinking the wine in London instead of in Santorini. But yeah, so that was my fifth little